Number 2, second keynote address.
Okay, let's see. There's one for me, and one for you. We got. Not ready.
Any extension cord?
Okay. So the talk what I'm going to talk about today is internet mapping. Oh man.
Use the overhead to extend.
Use what?
The overhead to extend.
Oh, there you go. Let's see. More power. There, I got it. It's the bin for 2600 laptop. So I've got the power. Now the question is the VGA. Oh good, yes. Well, I don't want you to see that yet. I want you to see it in order. So we'll start like that. Okay, so instead of a polished keynote, you get a rather hectic works in progress, which I think actually ties into some of what we just heard about, because it's a private effort to do something that might actually help the whole infrastructure. Who knows? Good man. There we go. Ooh, real power now, and I'm even charging the battery. So I'm hooked into Hoover Dam. Okay. All right, and I probably have about 10 minutes left. Is that about right? Okay. When you get to be slightly famous for security, you get invited to Washington and its area quite often, often to speak to rooms full of people who don't always introduce themselves. On one trip, I went to something called a Highlands Conference. You learn a lot about these various sorts of meetings. I spend New Year's with the president and his friends now, thanks to this stuff, which is pretty cool. The Highlands Conference doesn't have the president at it, but I was invited there in 1996, I guess it was, to give some talk on security and to do something called the day after scenario. Now, some of you people in here are old Washington insiders and might know this. This is a Rand Corporation think tank game. And the theory is this. It is 7 years in the future, and the US has just been attacked by a variety of buzzword compliant threats. So there is a polymorphic virus replicating in the stock exchange. A Morris-style worm has attacked the electrical system in Cincinnati. And your favorite threat has attacked this piece of the infrastructure. Now, you and a bunch of experts have an hour to discuss this, and then you have to go advise the president on what to do with this. So we do this. We sit around for an hour, split into groups. Some groups get nowhere, other groups come up. Different advisors work various ways. And then you tell the president what to do. And then the next thing is, okay, now it's the next day or the next week, and a whole bunch of really much worse attacks are occurring on the infrastructure. And you got another hour to discuss it, and then you go brief the president. And then at the end, and this is the key part, you say, okay, now we're back in 1996. What are the things we could do now that would make it better for us to handle that problem in 2005? Seems it's a reasonable sort of thing to do. It was a lot of fun. And I realized that one of the things you'd want to do, oh, by the way, none of the attacks were on the internet itself. The Rand thought that the power in Cleveland could be attacked, but didn't say what would happen if the root servers went down for a week, which seems to me might be a whole lot worse than losing power in Cleveland, which, come to think of it, is actually happening this week. And I came to Las Vegas for, to get out of the heat and to get some rain. So anyway, I think they're going to get a quarter of their water today, annual supply. Anyway, I'm going much too slowly on this. It occurred to me that what you really needed was a map of the internet. You may remember in the early days of the internet, way back 5 years ago or so, when something would go wrong, something would break out on the internet, the Milnet had a 56 KB link to the internet, and they'd cut it off. And they'd cut it off for maybe 3 or 4 days, like a turtle pulling in its head. Now, of course, the turtle shell now has so many holes they can't do that, as far as I know. But wouldn't it be useful to have a map if these attacks occurred, to try to find out where they came from, to maybe be able to pull in your head, find routing changes, to have some idea of what's going out there? If it's an information highway, where is my roadmap? Now, there are lots, and I said, gee, maybe it'd be interesting to do something about that. And, the internet's growing, by the way. This is a plot of Cisco Systems. The dots on the bottom are their earnings. That's what the bozos on Wall Street think it's worth. And growing at 35% a year, it's a lot better bet than a slot machine. And for that matter, my very own company, Lucent Technologies, which has Bell Labs, is, we work at Lucent. We're the research and development arm. Lucent, AT&T has a lot of my friends, but I don't work for them anymore. They got rid of us. So too bad for them. So I figured, gosh, I want to do a long-term internet mapping project. And the short answer, the short story is, I do a trace route every morning to some 90,000 internet nets from a test machine, and I record those in a database, and I compress that database, and save it daily, and I've been doing it since last August. I don't know if I'm very good. I'm certainly not a good graph theorist or display data visualization theorist, but I am a system administrator, and I can keep a machine up and secure and running daily for long periods of time. And if I collect uniform data over a long enough period of time, maybe we'll have some idea of what the internet looks like and how it changes, and maybe study routing stuff and so on. And it'd be fun to do some visualizations. I used an algorithm. Hal Birch, as a grad student at CMU, wrote it. Basically using brute force and pig ignorance to lay out those maps, and you'll see what they look like. And of course, once you have the ability to survey the internet, intranets are really easy. So maybe we can do some topography studies, long-term routing studies. The database is available to anyone who wants it, including spooks who are looking for open source data. Because it's okay for me to ping Finland, but if the Air Force does it, it might be an act of war. Now, as I'm running quickly through this, the idea is that I do use traceroute technology, so I'm actually gathering outbound data for my packets. No one knows how to do inbound from one particular machine. And it'd be nice to do this from a bunch of different areas and try to crisscross this and tie the nodes together and actually make a map of the middle of the internet, if graph theorists will even admit that that exists, and it's not clear it does. Of course, for intranet data, we think we have, in Lucent here, we have this perimeter defense enclosing 266,000 IP addresses. That is much bigger than the internet was when the Morris worm came out. We've circled the wagons around Wyoming. And, try to find gateways, leaks, new acquisitions. We have some opportunities for insider trading, that sort of thing when we get new connections that people haven't announced. And take the census. There's been lots of people who've been doing mapping work. I'm certainly not the first or even the best. Usually what you get when you get a map, this one's fairly laid back, is a blob of ink over the United States, a sort of slash from the upper right to the lower left, a blob over Europe, a blob in various places, and basically a lot of ink and not much information. Here's one of John Quarterman's maps that actually shows the blob up in the US of all the green squares and such. And the links to South America, which are actually scarce enough that you can make out on the real map, I mean, not on this 640 by 480 thing. You can actually tell that Uruguay goes to Paraguay through Washington or Miami. And that's the sort of thing you want to get out of a map, is get some sort of intuition about what's going on, and maybe a list of questions to ask for further investigation. And this has certainly done this. Here is Tamara Munster's mapping, and here's a layout similar to the sort we use. I told about this. Okay, so I actually scan about 10% of the internet every day, and once a month I do a full scan. I also do a daily full scan of the Lucent networks down to Class C, and starting on March 26th, started a daily scan of the Yugoslavian networks. Hey, if they're going to give a war, I want to watch. And I'll talk a little bit more about Yugoslavia later. So I get a master list from the Routing Arbiter database at Merit, which they update daily, and it's basically a list of every registered network. I could use BGP data. And I run the scan towards each network, and I do this hop by hop. And if I get no answer, I try again, and if there's still no answer, I stop. Now this is a lot more mild than running traceroute. The problem is, if I'm running this every day, I don't want to piss people off, right? I want to do this for years. I don't want it to look like a hacker. I don't want to look like I'm breaking through. I don't want to raise enough heat that someone makes me stop doing it. So I have to tippy-toe around there. And in fact, arguably, I'm tippy-toeing a little too gently. I should investigate a little further. But even so, it's a great database. I've got 90,000 of the world's most important routers in my database now, which I just collect and so on. Stop on it, keep the natives happy. It's a custom program. It's the fun little piece of seed, scans 500 nets simultaneously. I can run 500, 1,000 packets a second, but I do 100 packets a second so I don't annoy the local denizens. It's, by the way, a dual Pentium 90 running BSDI Unix. Install Windows 95 or a better, so I installed Unix. You know, it's such an easy, it's just Microsoft. Okay, so I do UDP scans with TTL stuff. I may switch to pings if I hit a block, because I think that's still modest. I actually guess a destination host on the target network and try to go to it. And if I don't reach it, I guess a different one. So over a period of months, I actually am doing a slow host scan. And yes, there are people out there who notice. Of course, most of them are utterly clueless that I'm doing this, which isn't surprising. This is how traceroute works. I'm not going to explain that to this crowd. So the database gives me 100 to 200 megabytes of text daily. I come from the computer science research group. There are people I eat lunch with who invented Unix. Our databases are made of text, and you handle them with awk and sed and grep and maybe Perl if you're one of these newfangled people. And so I have a bunch of tools that just rip things out and put them in there. Compresses to 5 to 10 megabytes. It takes about 2 months to fill a CD-ROM with data, which is available to qualified, which is to say seriously interested research. I will sit and burn ROMs of this stuff if you think you're going to do something with it. The graph theorists love it. Ooh, a big database of important information. What can we do with this? The daily internet results are available from a web page, which I'll show you. And of course, I back it up in the usual sorts of ways. Of course, there are limitations. This is my view of the internet, not yours. It's about me. If our ISP changes, if we have a routing problem, our view of the near part of the internet changes from day to day. But in general, it doesn't, and the database is fairly reliable. It takes a while to actually collect alternating maps, and I'll show that. And we may miss some endpoints that we could do if we do a little more. First people to complain were the Australian Parliament. What the hell are you doing, and stop it immediately. So I've got this little list of whiners. It's 25 nets out of about 90,000 that I don't scan. And I basically have the web page say, look, if it's inconvenient, if you're sick of looking at it in your logs, let me know, I'll stop scanning you. So far, it hasn't been a big problem. And of course, I'm sure there are other people who just block the packets. So one thing I might do is check day 1 versus day 20 and see if there are ends that are no longer reachable, or try it from another machine. There actually are a number of people who want me to run this from different places. And if I run it from very popular destinations, for example, Amazon, those places might become visible again. The military did notice immediately, for those of you who might think the military is clueless. And I have made arrangements with people like DISA saying, this is what I'm doing, this is what it looks like. Go over here, look at this project. And there are actually some people in the Beltway, well, they don't actually encourage the project. If they actually paid for it, that would be illegal. Then they'd be part of it and it'd be an act of war. But and they don't say, we use this data all the time, keep it up, this is really great, because these people don't tell you stuff like that. But when I say, go talk to these people and then let me know if you want me to continue, they get back a couple days later and say, continue. I guess someone's using this stuff. I hope so. Certainly I'm using it. Okay, so the next step, and I'm sure I'm doing all right. Visualization. I got this huge database. It's 100 megabytes. Do I have bugs? What does it look like? Let's take a look. So we do something equivalent to that old sexist joke about the wife having the husband rearrange the living room all Saturday. No, I want the sofa over here. No, I think the TV looks better over here. You know, he's moving it around for hours. I have a Pentium, a 400 megahertz Pentium, do that for 20 hours. Moving these nodes around according to some simple local rules about what should be close and what should be far. I even have a slightly amusing movie to show you in a little while about what that looks like. What I'm trying to do is make a map. And I want the map to be able to show paths to the ends of the internet, to give some indication of what's going on, what's out there, because most people think the internet is just a web page. Show interesting features. I want it to be a map that's big enough that it's hard to fold. You know, these are things it does. And I lay it out according to the internet's own topology. I don't care about geography. We'll do that later with colors, and I'll show you some of that. So the early layouts showed every edge on the internet. And it was tantalizing. Around the edge, I had these interesting fan-shaped things. In the middle was a blob of ink. Now, if you looked at the color of the blobs of ink, you could get an idea of who our major ISPs were, but you couldn't trace the routes, and you couldn't even see the source. So it looked something like this. And this appeared, or something very much like it appeared in December at Wired. Even in this, you can see there's, it's a 3-year-old laptop, and it's out of here. If nobody moves, we'll be okay. This spider over here is what is now called Cable and Wireless, formerly from MCI, going back to the NSFnet backbone. It sort of looks like the center of the internet. It actually looks bigger than it is because the backbone is entirely interconnected ATM networks, and ATM is below my level 3 mapping. So it looks like one spot. It looks like, if you go look at the map with a label, that if you put one small bomb in West Orange, New Jersey, you take out a third of the internet. And that's not true. You take it out for me, but you don't take it out for everyone else. That's actually 120 nodes, each cross-connected, virtual circuits. You know, n squared is getting pretty big for those guys. But you can see things around the edge, and if I remembered, various colors would be Finland or Netcom or other internet entities like that. This was a lot of fun, and there are artists who say, ooh, this is art. So when you don't quite get, oh, by the way, this is not the first conference I've been to that's had this problem. Well, we'll sneak words through there. Of course, when you don't get the... I'm standing.
May I have your attention, please?
Oh, well.
We are conducting a test of the hotel life safety system. The alarm you hear is part of this test. We apologize for any inconvenience. May I have your attention, please? We are conducting a test of the hotel's life safety system. The alarm you hear is part of this test. We apologize for any inconvenience.
A guy told me he got a free room by complaining about this when the alarms went off early this morning. Just a hint for those who might want to be on a budget. So when you don't get the results you want in science, the best thing to do is throw away the inconvenient data. What's illegal is not telling anyone about it. I wondered, gosh, laying out every edge sure produces a big mishmash, and I'm sure someone could visualize it in 3D or something like that. And if any of you think that's a good project, I look forward to your results. I'm not going to play with OpenGL and all that stuff, but this would be easy for a super VGA rendering engine, I suspect. Also, it doesn't give you a map. What if I only do the shortest path to each destination? It's not necessarily the path the packets go, but suddenly this massive graph becomes a tree. And maybe I can get more information out of it. And then it starts looking something like this, which, again, on this little tiny screen with not enough pixels isn't very much. But you can actually tell my machine is right there where the 3 lines diverge. Those are our 3 ISPs. And if I actually have a map laid out... wrong end. You can come up and look at these later. If you actually look on something a yard square, you can see the home machine, and you can pretty much trace the path to any endpoint. This is a better talk for a smaller crowd. And also, now this is the first time I have ever tried to do this. This is an MPEG slide in PowerPoint. This is how it lays it out, a short movie of how it does it. Ooh. You want to see it again? Sure. Now, I figure I'm collecting data every day, 30 days of the month, roughly. That's 30 frames a second. I should now have 12 seconds of internet growth. And if I do this over a period of years, using this algorithm along with something else, we may be able to actually show the organic growth of the internet. That'd be kind of cool. I'm not sure I know how to do that. For those who prefer stills, here it's done layer by layer, just as fast as PowerPoint can do it. On a 100 megahertz machine. I mean, be fair, they want me to buy a 500 Pentium for this. And I don't think I can get less than 330 now in a laptop. So you can see it goes out in layers. And this is going further distance. I cut some of these frames out because I knew this would be boring. Again, we don't have nearly enough pixels, and that's part of the problem with visualizing this on a screen. I'm standing.
Can you have your attention, please? We're conducting a test of the hotel life safety system. The alarm here is part of this test.
Okay, I have a question. Show of hands, how many people know what Conelrad is? Conelrad.
We are conducting
Whoa, not many.
life safety system.
Not many.
Here is part of this test. We apologize for any inconvenience.
Yeah. Give us some money back. Conelrad, AM radios used to have little symbols in two places on the radio where you're supposed to tune in case the Ruskies attacked. And that was Conelrad. The radios don't have that anymore. I guess we use the internet now. Okay, so I'm going to switch through pretty much. Once you've got the layout, you can color it lots of different ways. You can show it by network address. You can do it by geography. You can do it by ISPs, which are the city-states of the internet. You could even do it by timing or show firewalls, because I have a list of the world's firewalls now, don't I? Or something pretty close. You know, some of them actually return filtered. Others just eat the packets. And I keep that data. So here is a map colored by... This is colored, I've forgotten. I switched these around just before the talk. This is colored by something. I don't remember. Let's see what this one is colored by top-level domain. And in this case, I've made ISPs yellow, so they sort of fade back. Let's use 3 colors, shall we? There we go. The black is military. Okay, and you can see that's DISA in the middle, and various other pieces around here are the rest of the military, mostly the Navy is scattered around. I don't remember what the other colors are, but they're legends on charts up here you can come look at. So, you know, you can see where Germany is, or Europe, or South Africa, or Japan, or whatever, and see how many different ISPs go to a particular country. It can be sort of interesting. Here's one showing just Australia. And you can see, I'm counting on my much higher res screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are about 8 different ways to get there. It'd be interesting to sort of analyze that and find out their connectivity a little more. Well, the Velcro's coming apart up here. Here are all the connections to Yugoslavia. In San Diego, I had a power failure at the beginning of a talk. This is Lucent. This is really tedious. You notice there are 2 of them. There's a shorter pause between that one. Now there's the pause. There's 1, and instantly 2. The other thing I noticed is it seems to be continuous. I mean, it's not going up in steps that I can hear. If anyone here is epileptic, lie down. So labeling wasn't hard. Brute force works pretty well. The maps of Yugoslavia do show the bombing. Ooh, they do show the bombing. Well, let's put it this way. Something drastically reduces the things we can reach for several days after May 6th or 7th. And it gets cut back again. This talk is so new, I don't have a workable movie yet to show you. But you can actually see it. I'm not sure what it means. I also took as a test scratch country Bosnia and mapped that as well when I did this. And a lot of Bosnia went away with the bombing, and I'm wondering if they share power grids. Sort of spooky to have an actual map of Yugoslavia, you know. I found the Serbian webpage. It was in Serbian, but it said Hiroshima, Dresden, Baghdad, Belgrade. I knew what it was saying. And it occurred to me that I could help the guys in their battle. I mean, this is a web server. They're not, how clueful can they be? And I know all the routers in Bosnia. You know, I could launch my own attack. Why, heck, the Republic of Cheswick needs a foreign policy. Now I think that's something pretty new. I think traditionally civilians half a continent away don't have the ability to directly attack the country. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed like it was something new. I decided to keep my hands off. I don't actually have a pile of ready-to-go hacking tools. I have to go look through evidence to get that. So as you may gather, I have gigabytes of it. But it is sort of interesting to actually have that. By the way, the Republic of Cheswick's foreign policy is that open communication is good when there's a dictator involved, and I wanted all the email to go in and out as possible, so I left the web page up. Number of paths to a target. There's one network I found 150 different ways to reach in the last year. And for your... No. Come on, stop that. There, we move it. Then we touch it. Here is another thrilling movie, the 150 paths to one particular network. And what you will notice, that, and again, this is a lousy visualization for that, is over in the upper right, this thing keeps dancing different ways. What there is, I think, a quintuply redundant set of routers. And each time I go through, I find a different path through the cross connections. So I've got really great data now that shows all the different ways through. Plus, if you look here locally, you can see that I go through two different ISPs. So the routing changes a little. That's sort of intriguing. It's not wonderful visualization yet, but I think it's interesting and has promise. And if you want to work on this, let me know. I'll give you the database, and I look forward to your results. The average length of paths is 17 on the internet. Corporate security really likes this, and this might be a really cool thing to go plot some other nets. In fact, our government solutions people have had inquiries from certain three-letter agencies about coming and plotting their network. There are other things you can do, not just plotting it, but once you have a list of routers, you can find out if they're open, if they know any routes that are unofficial. You can try looping packets around from the inside to the outside and outside to the inside, and detecting leaks, which is something that can be sort of useful to know. Because I've decided that an intranet is any network that's so large that the people who think they own it don't actually control it. The results have also been great media interest because, to date, if you want a picture of the internet, you get three geeks staring at a web page. And now there's a map, and the media loves this, and it will appear in, probably appear in a major magazine in the next couple of weeks. So I'm selling posters. And I'm looking for people who want to market posters. I'm not selling them myself. As far as I'm concerned, it's a one-page book. And I'll let someone else make all the money. I'll just collect $1 for Hal and me. So if you know someone who thinks this is a great opportunity, we can get you in touch with the intellectual property people. You don't sign your life away. And I'd be happy to collect some money from it. So there are other ideas: t-shirts, notepads, postcards, jigsaw puzzles, silk scarves, and the back of my business card. And there are obviously a lot of stuff you can do with this if you look at the data. And this is the long-winded URL. The easy way is to just type in the word Cheswick, because that's my vanity tag on the Internet Information Highway, and it'll get you to a page with pointers to everything, you know, my Bell Labs page and the mapping page. Or you can type this awful thing down. and this will get you to the mapping. Actually, I think if you ask Alta Vista for internet mapping, I show up on some of this stuff. And that is it. I think I'm running a little long, but thank you for your forbearance, and thanks. See you at lunch.
This is the appropriate exit.
What?
Yes.